I am Nate WL777 with special guest,
Vinyl Killer.
and we're here to review an anime by the name of.
High Score Girl.
This is a Netflix original released in December of 2018. This is 15 episodes long. It is a romantic comedy. This is a story that centers around Haruo and his life. Would you say the name for me?
Haruo.
Yes, Haruo. And his love for video games, and it also centers around the changes from going from an in-arcade video games that we played. This is a nostalgia piece back in the 80s, and making that transition from arcades into game consoles in your home. It also is a romance story between him and two schoolgirls that he goes to school with, that he also knows from the arcades as well. They all have a love of games, and it at its core, the artwork itself is very beautiful. This is a well-designed, well-shot, very clean art. The world build is beautiful. The video games, especially when it gets into the setting of the arcades and the video games, it is absolutely gorgeous. Even the characters themselves, like I said, really, really good artwork. It works very well for the story it's telling. Any thoughts on that?
No, and I totally agree with you, but the way they do the facial expressions with the art, like, it's so weird. It's kind of quirky, but it actually works well with the kind of anime it is. So yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think it's so beautiful. So the next is the characters, and honestly, I feel like the characters were, for the most part, well developed. There were a couple characters in there that were a little but as the most part, even the supporting cast and stuff like that, I think was definitely done very well. I think that the chemistry between all of the characters worked pretty well as well, and I thought that was pretty great, especially the three main characters. Though they have different personalities, they really melded together, and they kind of played off each other as far as their strengths and weaknesses. So I thought that was developed quite well. You got any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, and I totally agree. Again, I really enjoyed the characters. They were well built, they were well structured, and the base off of the characters into the storyline is great.
Yeah, it all really does flow well and work quite well. So that brings us to the story. Again, I think it works very well for what it is. It flows extremely well. I thought that there were some definite slower parts, but that's expected in a anime of this style, especially with a romantic comedy. I would say that there were some parts that maybe dragged a little bit longer than it should have, and kind of went a little bit slower for me. But for the most part, it worked. I mean, that's what you want, is a subtle piece as far as this was concerned. So the humor, I thought, was also pretty good. Some of it didn't hit, and obviously I'm older, I'm watching this. There was some stuff that probably maybe appeals to a younger crowd that maybe not, didn't appeal to me, but a little slow. The one thing I will say is that this is pulling off a multi-level storyline. I believe this kind of appeals to it appeals to, first, the human relationship dimension of it between him and the two girls. This also appeals to it's like a kid's story. It's a story for younger kids, and then also it's a nostalgia story, and it definitely plays very well. And I think all three of those stages, like the nostalgia piece, for me to be able to watch it at my age and remember those the video games, and this is really a very central portion of this, and it really, really throws me back, and it makes me really appreciate that aspect of it. So I relate to it a lot more on that level, just because I went through that time period. And then also from the kids' perspective, what do you think on that?
Well, yeah, there was definitely some immature things that kids would probably find more funny, but it was really great. The way they made the levels, I was gonna say the way they made the episodes, they made them rounds. So like in video games, so it was like episode 1 was round 1, episode 2 was round 2, and that was really cool. But yeah, this was definitely more geared towards kids. But I mean, like what you said, the nostalgia affects adults too, so adults could have time enjoying this.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think it works on both for me and for him, from that level where sometimes the kid shows, they work for him and maybe don't work for me. So With that said, I think the next thing is really the voiceover work, and I think that the voiceover work was done very well. They had a lot of emotions that they needed to portray, and they stayed true with their characters. Some of the characters were kind of cold, some of the characters were quiet, some of the characters were louder and stuff, and I think they did a really good job of capturing that, the characters themselves and bringing those to life. So I was very much sold from the voiceover perspective. What do you think of that?
Oh, definitely. Voiceover was A-okay.
So I think that brings me to the negatives aspect. And again, I feel like maybe it's just a little slow at some points. I think that there is a little bit of character development problems. Not a whole lot. It's a very small portion, but it is there. So it does bring it down just a little bit. For me, again, it's a little bit silly at times. There's some silliness going on that I just don't really relate to. I didn't really get. And then also, I think the biggest thing, I've said this before about other anime, but I'll say it again, is just the limitations in the genre that it is. With it being a romantic comedy, it's just not going to be one of those ones that elevate it to this elite level, in my opinion. But for what it is, if this is your thing, is romance comedy, it's done very well. It's very beautiful. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and what he's saying by the silliness, there's some stuff in it that, I mean, it's geared for kids, but there's like some stuff in it that may be like more for like older kids. There's like one character in general who's like really kind of creepy, and she's weird and gross. I don't know. That's just my thoughts on it.
Yeah, and I would say from that leads me perfectly into whether I would allow my kid to watch it, which I am doing an anime with a review with my child, so obviously I let him watch it. What do you think as far as with that one character in mind?
She says some inappropriate stuff. I mean, I don't know. I guess I would probably go with, because I'm 11, I'd go like 11 or 12 and up.
Yeah, I mean,
anime.
It is just a small amount of stuff in it. I was actually surprised because I think it was rated a PG, so we kind of felt good about that. And then going in, I think that there were a couple moments where I was like, didn't really care for that. But it is very little, and it really is just one character. If you're super strict about it, then yeah, I mean, I would say that there is a couple things just so you know it's in there. I try to always do that so people know, because obviously as a father, I want to make sure I'm giving him the content I feel like he's good with. So. At that point, I think it comes to my favorite character, and I think my favorite character is the main character, is Haruo, and I really relate to him his gaming choices, especially like when he likes games or likes characters. A lot of times I'm on board with him. When he doesn't like something, a lot of times I'm like, yep, I didn't like that either, or whatever. I just felt like his character really brought me in, and I was able to relate to his character a lot from my younger perspective, growing up in the same time frame and playing a lot of the same video games and the same video game consoles, and also the experiences going in the arcades, and then also being at home, which is something a lot of people don't experience as much these days as the arcade. So it was cool to see that nostalgia part. I definitely helped me relate to him. What about you?
I am in agreement again. I really liked Haruo as well. He probably got more of the nostalgia. He could relate to him more because he was a kid in that time or that time of era. Like, he was a kid in the 1980s, 1990s, stuff like that. He probably played the same games. I just really like him because he's a video game player like me, and he rages over video games like I do a lot. He does some of the same choices I probably would have done in that time period, but yeah.
And then so that brings me to my rating, and I am going to rate this a very strong 8.6. Again, just because of the type of genre, I think it's limited, but for what it was absolutely beautiful. It works for me, and 8.6 is a really high score here for this. I would very, very much recommend this to somebody, especially if they were a little bit younger and wanted to watch a really good anime. I would definitely recommend this.
I was really close to. I had already figured out my rating before I found out his. I have it an 8.7, so really close opinions. We both strongly like this anime.
Obviously, there's no link for this. This is going to be on Netflix, but I will leave a link below to Vinyl Killer's page if you're interested in subscribing to that page, as well as please subscribe to mine. Hit a like if you like this. If you got something out of it, I'll be putting out more reviews, and hopefully I'll have my guest here on a couple more as we proceed in these reviews. So thanks for watching, and again, like below, comment if you think it was a good rating. If you watched it and you think it's a little lower than I'm giving it, let us know. All right, thanks.